So in this last lecture of the normative clauses for the 2017 IOCMI standards, we're going to learn about the competencies that are required of people to fulfill the roles that we described in the previous lecture. So a competency really is something that explains both the skill and ability and perhaps also qualification to be able to do something. So the first competency that we talk about is the Innovation and Organizational Change, or IOC, leadership management role. So the competencies required for this is that the person should be able to manage the innovation and change leadership process. So there's a process for engaging leaders. There's planning that needs to be done. So in other words, plan who needs to be engaged, what they need to buy into, perhaps what their pains are, to be able to understand how to engage that leader in this innovation and organizational change process. That person also needs to understand reporting and of course has to undertake leadership activities. Right, so these competencies really are what's required of somebody to be successful owning this role of leadership management. The next set of competencies we talk about is for the IOC process system and data management role. So these competencies should be somebody that can implement a process and a set of processes across the team or across the department, across an entire organization perhaps. But this person is the custodian of those processes for that organization, for that department, for that team. And they're the custodian of the system that's got to automate and enable this set of processes for innovation and organizational change. And that person needs to be able to understand data, as the data sits inside these innovation systems. So what's really key is that this person has got an architect view of how the organization is structured, how these innovation and organizational change processes are going to integrate into teams and departments and entire organizations. And they need to be able to understand data quality, which is really the foundation for having a quality system for innovation and organizational change. The next set of competencies that we talk about is for financial business case management. So this should be somebody that's got some financial acumen, understands how to do financial planning. In other words, what is it going to cost to develop that innovation, whether it's a policy, whether it's a process or a service? And then what is it going to cost to transform the organization, to engage and create a successful process with the impacted stakeholder groups and the stakeholder groups that are required to engage and support that transformation process? What is that all going to cost? And then once all that planning's been done, to make sure that those finances are kept on track once that innovation and organizational change or changes have been approved. The next set of competencies is the IOC Business Project Action and Impact Management role. So this is somebody who's got an action mindset, but also is mature enough to understand that every business action is going to have one or more impacts and is able to integrate the management of the actions and the impacts. We're not talking simply about a project manager who only understands project actions, but somebody who really understands that transformation or successful transformation is about a business action as well as managing the associated impact or impacts within the organization or outside of the organization. And then we talk about a set of competencies for the IOC Stakeholder Communications, Education and Training Management role. So this is somebody that's going to be able to engage with key stakeholders, in other words, people who lead stakeholder groups. These are essentially people who are influencers amongst a particular stakeholder group set. So for example, this could be the VP of Finance, would be the key stakeholder of perhaps vendors, or at least vendor accounts. So this role has got a basket of competencies that explain and define communications, but also is able to understand which actions and impacts need further communication and education activity. And then a lot of these impacts, perhaps it's a new system, this person needs to be able to identify and build off the education a training plan where the process for example, an accounts payable process is going to be changed. So it's got to be an education, but also a system training component. So that brings us to the last of the normative clauses of the 2017 standards.